Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I will cover Mississauga's real estate market. Specifically, I would like to target these first-time home buyers with 10% down. What can they actually afford in city of Mississauga? Will it be challenging? Of course, but also I have a couple of prediction how it might actually tip, or how would scenarios look if we see another price reduction of 35%, or if we see no price reduction but we see another 2% cut in real estate interest rates. So all of those things, I have it right here in my notes. I will read it to you. Let's get into the video and it will be interesting. All right, so we are targeting specifically entry level first time buyers with 10% down. Having said that, I just spoke to another colleague of mine. He's been doing real estate for decades. And it is interesting that he mentioned something. And he mentioned in the 90s when real estate turned upside down and all of that stuff, when he would actually walk into a building around Square One area, Elm Drive and Mississauga Valleys, around the shopping mall and all of that stuff, he would actually see, 70, 80, 90 units for sale at that time, right? And it was very challenging because even at that time, a lot of investors would own these units. So 80% on average in these towers or these buildings were investors. So when it all collapsed and it tumbled upside down and all of that stuff, it was very challenging, but it brought the real estate prices down to a point where it was actually affordable and sellable. So what I'm trying to say by that is that if someone would actually walk into a tower in the early 90s when everything went upside down, and they would like to rent a apartment. So for argument's sake, let's just say it was like $1,500 to rent at that time, right? So if the actual condo that is for sale, the math is adding up around $1,500, they would pivot to actually purchase a condo, right? So that was also a sales strategy back in the day. But now let's look at today's number in 2025 and how it looks for a first-time buyer with 10% down. So here we go. So the average price of property in Mississauga, condos, $585,000, townhouses, $850,000 up to $900,000. Now, obviously, there are townhomes that have maintenance fees, could be a little bit cheaper, but this is an average pricing. Now we get into semis that are just above $1 million, detached homes that are from 1.34 million and all the way up, and the luxury market that sits around $2 million plus. We all know that the diversity in Mississauga is huge. You have condos, you have waterfront properties, you have luxury market, you have the middle class market, which I don't even know what is a middle class market anymore. But in this scenario, let's say if someone purchases a condo for $585,000, which is an average price, and they put 10% down, brings their mortgage to $527,000 and change, which is a payment of $3,227 a month. Now, that doesn't include, maintenance and taxes and all of that stuff. Now, when we get into townhomes, we're averaging between $4,700 up to $5,000, semi-detaches, $5,500 and up, and all the way up, right? Like, detached homes, $7,700 and up, and luxury market is a luxury market, $10,000 plus. But having said that, if we're looking at a couple, like a couple or a single person, they would be able to maybe live, I don't know if they will be able to afford, but we're sitting somewhere around $585,000 for an entry level. Now, when I throw a curveball, and when I say now, like, look, I'm looking for a family with children, maybe a pet or something like that, they would need more space. So a $585,000 condo will not fit, right? Like it will not fit to accommodate a family. So now when we get into that, the entry level is an townhouse that averages between $800,000 to $900,000. Can you imagine that? That is a lot of money. So now when we get to the actual breakdown, we find that if someone is putting a 10% down on a $850,000 condominium, obviously they will have to take the mortgage insurance, CMHC, and all of that stuff, with a interest rates and all of that stuff sitting at 5.5% on an amortization rate of 25 years. We're looking around $5,000 a month. Now, this is mind-boggling because, like the average is between $800,000 and $900,000 to get them into a townhouse that they could actually live somewhat comfortably. Backyard, maybe no backyard, but it really doesn't matter, right? So, but $5,000, can a average family fetch this kind of numbers? This is very concerning, right? So forget all the investors. The investors are gone. Nobody is investing any more money. So now, if we translate this particular situation and we translate it into rental, guess what happens? So a rental, a condo of a 2-bedroom, an average is around $2,800 to $2,900 a month. A townhouse, it's $3,100. Semi-detached, $32,000 plus. Detached home, $4,000 plus. And then obviously you go from there. Luxury market, which I don't want to get into. But simply said here, someone can actually move into a townhouse today paying $3,000 plus. And okay, they're not an owner. They keep their $10,000 deposit. They're not exposing themselves to CMHC. They're not exposing themselves to the extra cost of repairs and all of that stuff. So they're not writing that $5,100 mortgage a month plus taxes. And if that particular complex has a maintenance fee, some have, $100, $200, $300. Some are into $500 and $600 a month. So a tenant doesn't have to absorb that cost, right? It's the actual landlord or the owner that absorbs those costs. So a tenant just writes a check for the actual sum, and that's it, right? They might have to pay utilities and all that stuff, but you see the difference. The difference is double. It's literally double. So if we go back to the 90s, so the late 80s, we had the same bubble, same scenario. Investors and all of that stuff, everybody was building, panicking, FOMO, all of that stuff. I get that. And then the shift, and then the sales strategy after a while happened to be, look, you don't have to rent. You can literally own for the same money or close to the same money and be an owner. Yes, I get it. You have to come up with a down payment. You have to earn to be that landlord or owner, but it makes sense. So today, how can I make sense of these numbers? It just doesn't make sense. Now, we can get into all of that stuff, the landlord and the tenant and the security and all of that stuff. I understand that, but I'm just talking today, this particular position. Now, let's move on and let's keep this rental graph on the side. Now, let me give you a scenario. So let's say in today's prices, today, if we see a correction of another 35%, all right, so from the peak of the market in 2022, I would say March was the peak at that time. So until today, we have probably seen a correction of 15%. So let's see let's say we add another 35%, which makes it a 50% total reduction from the top. So let's say a condo with this minus 35% correction and the fixed rates remain the same at 5.5%, amortization of 25%, 10% down, and all of that stuff, purchasing that condo for $380,000 versus 500 and how much was that? 585, I believe. We would get a mortgage of $2,086. Now, if you're looking at the rental, you're like, okay, hold on a second. This almost makes sense. So the prices have to come down by 35%. So I know you're probably commenting right now, or you're probably scratching your head. And I get it, right? And I get that even in 2022, people were saying we didn't hit the peak. This nonsense will go for forever. There's a shortage of housing. There's a shortage of everything, and it has to keep going. For some reason, everybody thought that they were entitled to some kind of a roller coaster going up. I don't get it, but it is what it is. You can have your opinion and you can have your thought. So I give you another scenario. So you don't like this one, a correction of negative 35%. Okay, fine, you don't like that. But let's say that there's no correction, that the price remains for a condo at $585,000. Let's just say that for a second. And then we say the bank gives in and the bank lowers its fixed rate to 3.5%, right? So it's a 2% downwards, like 200 basis points from today, right? So you will see that the mortgage monthly payments on a $585,000 condo would be $2,654. So looking at this and then moving even further now, right? A townhouse that's averaging between $850,000 and $900,000, the prices remain the same. A mortgage would be around $3,800 a month, right? So now looking at all of this, I'm like, okay, hold on a second, right? Like if we have a scenario where the mortgage rate remains at 5.5% and a correction of 35% reduction, that same townhouse would be around $3,200 a month. And if we have 2 basis points down and the prices remain the same, we would have a mortgage around $3,800 a month. Obviously, I'm not including taxes and all of that stuff, right? But then even the rental today, if nothing happens, like let's say you're not looking, you can lease a townhouse in that range for around $3,200, right? So what needs to happen here, folks? What needs to happen in order for everyone to actually enter the market once again? I'm not gonna say properly, but to enter the market, period, right? Like what needs to happen, right? And I know I took a low down payment of 10%. And you say, well, it's kind of like a low down payment. I understand that. But a down payment on, $600,000, it's like $60,000 plus all the cost and closing and all of that. It still requires a person or a couple to come up with these funds. And it can take, years, right? So just a simple math, if somebody is saving $1,000 a month, okay, for next 5 years equals out to be $60,000. So I don't know. Do you know many people that can save $1,000 nowadays? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you're planning to buy. So what I need from you, please, is a comment, an opinion. What do you really think? Are we inflated? Did we really hit that bottom? Because many claim that we literally hit the bottom. We had these price reductions, we had everything. Now it's the time the prices will magically, for some odd reason, but magically start to go up. So I hope you got some value out of this video. If you like anything else on my video, please click on these videos. You can watch it, you can enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one.